We need leaders who resonate with our new vision. And unfortunately, you're not that person anymore.
That was the moment everything changed, though. The day had started like any other, with no hint of what was coming. It was supposed to be just another Wednesday morning, the kind of day that began with my usual routine: coffee at 6:15, a quick jog around the block, an email sorted before 8. I had back-to-back meetings lined up. Bradley Monroe from Valent wanted a pre-launch strategy review, and Nina Delgado at Greenway had flagged some community feedback for a sustainability campaign. Just another day at Beacon and Brand, or so I thought. Then came the email: subject meeting request. Alyssa Vance. Time 9:09 a.m. Alyssa, the newly appointed CEO, rarely scheduled direct meetings with senior strategists like me. She'd been in the role for just under 3 months, young, poised, obsessed with vision. The kind of leader who quoted Gary Vaynerchuk and sprinkled buzzwords like disruption and momentum into casual hallway greetings. I'd had little interaction with her beyond surface-level exchanges. Still, I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was about the Valent campaign's national rollout. Or perhaps she wanted my take on the influencer brief that had been circulating upstairs. I grabbed my notebook and headed up. Her assistant gave me a tight smile as she opened the door to Alyssa's corner office. Beacon and Brand's crown jewel, floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in morning sunlight. The furniture was minimalistic, Scandinavian cold calculated. On the far side of the room, Alyssa stood near her desk, arms loosely crossed, her expression unreadable. To my surprise, someone else was already there, Mackenzie Rhodes. That gave me pause. Mackenzie was a recent hire, a 28-year-old marketing prodigy with a massive online following and a LinkedIn bio that read more like a press release than a resume. Influencer-turned-strategist, supposedly brilliant with Gen Z touchpoints, though. I had yet to see any campaign from her that demonstrated actual depth, Frances Alyssa said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Thanks for coming. I sat setting my notebook down calmly. Mackenzie offered a tight smile, the kind that felt more rehearsed than sincere. Alyssa eased into her seat. I'll get straight to it. We're realigning the firm's structure to better match where the industry is headed. Agile teams, digital. First philosophy, greater synergy with influencer dynamics. It's an exciting time. My brows lifted, but I said nothing. I'd been through 2 rebrands, 1 merger, and the 2008 financial meltdown. Corporate speak didn't rattle me. We're introducing new leadership on key accounts, she continued, nodding toward Mackenzie. Effective immediately, Mackenzie will be assuming client relations for Valent, Greenway, and Sterling. It landed like a slap I wasn't supposed to react to. I looked at Mackenzie, who nodded politely, like she was receiving an award. You're terminating my position. We're sunsetting the role, Alyssa replied smoothly. You've been instrumental in our growth. Frances, your severance package is generous. HR has the paperwork. I stared at the two of them. Alyssa steely and rehearsed, and Mackenzie all glossy confidence. Then I saw it: matching watches, matching power poses, matching gold-plated confidence. And suddenly it clicked. This wasn't a promotion earned. It was a favor granted. I remembered the board meeting last quarter, how Mackenzie had been introduced by Everett Lang, one of the newer board members, significantly younger than the rest. There'd been whispers, late-night appearances together. And now, suddenly, she had my portfolio. So this was it. 15 years of loyalty erased to make room for someone's girlfriend. I understand, I said, standing. My voice was even, my spine straight. Alyssa stood too relieved by my compliance. We'd appreciate your cooperation during the transition, out of respect for your legacy. Respect. I almost laughed, but I just nodded. I've always been professional. I walked out without another word. Back in my office, I packed methodically, my framed award from the Western States Marketing Guild, the handwritten note from Gerald Whitmore, after we turned around Sterling's brand reputation, photos of my daughter Madison at her graduation, a paperweight shaped like a compass, Caleb gave it to me when we landed the Greenway account. The goodbye wasn't dramatic, no tears, no outbursts, but something in me cracked open. This company had been my second home. I'd poured everything into it: time, loyalty, insight. I'd mentored younger staff, shielded interns from executive fallout, held the line when budgets slashed and clients panicked. And I was discarded for optics. My phone buzzed. "Madison, still on for dinner tonight," I replied. "Definitely, I have some news." I turned off the lights to my office for the last time. My heels clicked against the tile floor as I walked past the lobby, past the award wall that still bore campaigns. I led, past the junior staffers, who looked up and quickly looked away, unsure what to say. I stepped outside into the California spring air. The sun hit my face. I exhaled. They thought they were ending my story, but I was only just getting started. Madison had already ordered wine when I slid into the booth at our favorite restaurant downtown, a cozy fusion place with warm lighting, velvet seats, and a humming jazz playlist that made even the worst days feel manageable. The moment she saw me, her smile faded. "You okay?" she asked, setting her phone aside. I exhaled. "They let me go." Her eyes widened. Wait. What happened?" I took a slow sip of water and recounted everything. Alyssa's canned phrases, Mackenzie sitting beside her, trying to look remorseful, the cold handover, and the truth that wasn't spoken aloud, that I was being replaced because of a relationship, not merit. "She's Everett Lang's girlfriend," I said quietly, "one of the new board members. That's why she's suddenly overseeing Valent Greenway and Sterling." Madison's expression hardened. "That's disgusting. It's business," I said, though even I didn't believe the words as they left my mouth. "No, Mom, that's politics. You're telling me they fired the woman who built that agency's client portfolio to hand it over to someone with a ring and a relationship." "She doesn't even have a ring," I muttered. Madison let out a half laugh, half scoff. "Seriously, you're joking?" I shook my head, eyes fixed on the condensation rolling down my water glass. She leaned forward. "You always said your strength wasn't just running campaigns. It was knowing people, reading them, making them trust you. That doesn't disappear just because your email signature changed. I signed a non-solicitation agreement." I reminded her, "I can't contact any of my clients. But what if they contact you?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Buzz. Bradley Monroe, Valent Tech, heard the news. "Let's talk." Buzz. "Nina Delgado Greenway. Foods need to speak urgently. Please call me Buzz. Gerald Whitmore Sterling. Financial. This is unacceptable. Breakfast tomorrow." I blinked at the screen, slowly placing the phone face up on the table. Madison stared at the messages. "Mom." I looked at her stunned. "They're reaching out, all three. They're not loyal to the agency. They're loyal to you." I wanted to believe it, but I also knew how quickly loyalty could be tested in the business world. Budgets shifted, boards panicked, new trends caught fire. Still, there was something grounding in the fact that within hours of my dismissal, the people I had served most closely had sensed something was wrong. Madison rested her hand over mine. "You know what this means, right?" I shook my head slowly. "It means I wasn't just a name on an org chart." "No," she said with quiet confidence. "It means they made a mistake, and they're going to feel it." Our food arrived, and we ate in reflective silence for a few minutes. I kept glancing at my phone, half expecting a follow-up text, a change of heart. But no more messages arrived. Junior staffers, former interns, even a past client who had heard whispers. Then came the kicker. A LinkedIn post. Alyssa Vance had shared a company photo, she and Mackenzie standing side by side in front of the Beacon and Brand logo. The caption read, "Excited to lead Beacon and Brand into a bold new era of modern marketing. Thrilled to welcome Mackenzie Rhodes to our leadership team as we embrace cutting-edge, influencer-driven strategies." Sometimes evolution means saying goodbye to legacy approaches. #onward, #innovation, #next-gen. Leadership. I stared at the screen, my appetite evaporating. Madison's fork froze halfway to her mouth. She actually posted that, she did. "Goodbye to legacy approaches." She just called you obsolete. I think that was the goal, Madison was seething. Do they not get what you've done for that agency? Do they know you handled the Valent crisis in 2016? That you practically rebuilt Greenway's image after the GMO backlash? I don't think they care, I said. They think optics matter more than history. She sat back, eyes blazing. Well, optics won't save them when their biggest clients walk. I didn't respond. Not yet, but a plan was beginning to form in the quiet corners of my mind. That night, after Madison hugged me goodbye in the parking lot, I sat in my car and opened a blank note on my phone. I listed every client I'd worked with in the past 5 years. I marked the ones I'd had lunch with, called late at night, helped through PR storms. There were dozens. I didn't need to reach out, they already were. And that meant something. I got home around 10. I poured a glass of wine, changed into my most comfortable hoodie, and reread Gerald's message. Gerald Whitmore, this is unacceptable. Breakfast tomorrow. I typed back 8:30 at Harper's Diner. I'll be there. Then I set my phone down, turned off the lights, and allowed myself to feel just for a second, not like someone who'd lost everything, but like someone who'd just been given a second chance. And maybe, just maybe, that was better than a job title ever could be. Riverside Cafe was buzzing with the morning crowd when I arrived, but to me, it felt like the eye of a storm. Caleb Bryant and Renee Carlton were already seated near the back, a strategic corner booth where no one would overhear. What was about to unfold? Caleb stood when he saw me, pulling me into a hug. Renee followed her eyes, already scanning me for emotional damage. You look calm, she said. I am, I replied. Probably calmer than I should be. Because you know you're not done, Caleb said, simply sliding a thick folder across the table. I raised an eyebrow, opening it. Inside was a clean, comprehensive business plan, branding notes, client segmentation models, a projected P&L for year 1. A name was scrawled across the cover, in serif font. Summit Edge Marketing. You've been busy, I murmured. We've been building this for months, Renee admitted, waiting for the right moment. And apparently, Caleb added, Alyssa handed it to us. I let the weight of it settle. It felt right in my hands, grounded, ambitious, familiar, in all the right ways. You want me to come on as partner? Founding partner, Caleb corrected, and client strategy lead. We won't build this without you, Francis. I studied their faces, earnest, expectant, and full of the same fire I used to feel before Beacon and Brand became more brand than Beacon. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Bradley Monroe. I've cancelled today's meeting with Mackenzie. We need to talk privately. Another message. Nina Delgado. I want to speak with you directly before we finalize anything on Greenway's Q3 rollouts. And then one more. Gerald Whitmore. Bring your insights to breakfast. I'm not interested in anyone who doesn't know our history. I looked up. Stunned. They're walking, I said. Caleb grinned. And they're not looking back, but we haven't even incorporated yet. We're ready. Renee's brother secured the domain. We have a designer drafting logos. We can go live in under 10 days. I hesitated, the reality of starting over so late in the game giving me pause. But the truth was, Beacon and Brand had already moved on. They'd posted about their next-gen leadership with embarrassing enthusiasm. That door was closed, and this one was open wide and waiting. Let's say yes, I said, but we do it clean. I'm not going to chase clients or violate my contract. Agreed, Renee nodded. We don't solicit. If they come to us, they come by choice. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope Alyssa's assistant had handed me. Inside was a formal non-solicitation agreement signed and dated. I placed it on the table. We build this the right way, I said. No shortcuts, no bitterness, just value. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Beacon and Brand's legal department. Subject reminder of contractual obligations. Francis, please remember that any communication with existing Beacon and Brand clients regarding transition or services could constitute a breach of contract. We expect you to uphold your agreement in full. Legal Affairs Beacon and Brand. I turned my screen toward Caleb and Renee. They're nervous, Renee said, eyes narrowing. They should be, I replied. We toasted with our coffees, 3 people on the edge of something terrifying and exhilarating. By afternoon, I'd met with Gerald at Harper's Diner. He didn't waste time on small talk I built. Sterling on trust Francis numbers matter. Sure, but clients don't stay for charts, they stay for people. I don't know this Mackenzie girl. I don't trust that kind of shuffle. I can't offer anything yet, I said carefully, but I can tell you I won't stay on the sidelines. He smiled. You let me know when the wheels are moving. I'll bring the rest of the wagon. Later that day, Caleb texted me a photo, the first draft, of the Summit Edge marketing logo. A stylized mountain peak with a north-pointing arrow. Simple, steady. Certain. I stared at it for a long time. My phone buzzed again, from Nina Delgado. I just saw Alyssa's LinkedIn post. Is this really the direction they're going? Because if so, we'll be reviewing our agency relationship immediately. I typed slowly. Let's talk. I'll send you my personal email. I sat back and realized I hadn't chased a single one of them. I hadn't lifted a finger. But the truth had its own gravity. Beacon and Brand had forgotten something vital. You can't replace trust with trend, and now the very foundation they tried to erase was the one thing they couldn't survive without. Summit Edge hadn't even launched, and yet we were already winning. Beacon and Brand didn't collapse in a single day. Reputations never do. But cracks were forming, and they were visible to anyone who knew where to look. By Monday morning, Gerald Whitmore had formally emailed Beacon and Brand's procurement department to terminate their engagement. His language was curt, but not aggressive, just disappointed. Sterling Financial appreciates the years of collaboration. However, we feel our current needs are better served elsewhere. Translation: You pushed away the one person we trusted. I read the email twice before forwarding it to Caleb and Renee. Caleb called almost instantly. We have momentum. Gerald's departure will signal the others. He wasn't wrong. By Tuesday, Valent Tech followed. Their CEO, Bradley Monroe, issued a statement directly to Beacon and Brand's board, not even bothering with Alyssa. He cited philosophical misalignment and a loss of strategic continuity. And that was the nail. Nina Delgado sent her message Wednesday morning. It wasn't just formal, it was fiery. Our brand is built on trust, consistency, and authenticity. Those aren't buzzwords to us, they're values. If Beacon and Brand no longer reflects them, we will find representation that does. 3 of their biggest accounts, gone in less than a week. The LinkedIn whispers began soon after anonymous posts from former employees, rumors of client meetings being rescheduled or cancelled, whispers of panic, and then came the internal memo, leaked by someone on the inside, someone who still respected what I had built. Confidential. All department heads are instructed to avoid public commentary on client transitions. Messaging is being coordinated through corporate affairs. Any press inquiries should be routed through official channels. I read it over breakfast while Caleb reviewed lease options for our new office. Renee was finalizing the Summit Edge website. We hadn't even gone live, but our inboxes were full. Other clients, other agencies, former Beacon staffers who wanted to jump ship. It wasn't just a ripple anymore. It was a shift that afternoon. While testing our client intake form on the new Summit Edge site, I received an email from Patricia Langford, chairwoman of the Beacon and Brand Board. Francis, I'd appreciate a brief conversation if you're open to it. I believe the board would benefit from understanding your perspective on recent developments. Please let me know when you're available. Regards. Patricia Langford. I read the message 3 times. I hadn't spoken to Patricia in years. She was one of the few board members who had been around since the company's early growth stages. Quiet, observant, often underestimated, I replied simply, available tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Call works, Francis. That night, I sat alone in the rented co-working space we were using until the Summit Edge office was ready. The logo now hung proudly on a foam core board near the door. Summit Edge marketing built on trust. designed for results. I watched the quiet flicker of the screensaver dance across Renee's laptop and felt the strangest emotion. Peace. I hadn't begged anyone. I hadn't thrown stones. I'd simply held steady, and somehow that had done more damage to Beacon and Brand than any revenge plot ever could. The next morning, the call came right on time. Frances Patricia said, her voice steady, mature, composed. "Thank you for taking the time. Of course, I'll be direct. We're reviewing leadership decisions in light of recent client losses." These were not small accounts. "No, they weren't," I said, "and all three have indicated their departure was connected to your dismissal. They reached out to me." "Not the other way around." "I believe you," she said. "A few of them said as much, but the issue isn't legal. It's cultural. You represented a certain philosophy here. One, I'm afraid we abandoned too quickly. I waited. If we made changes," she said carefully, "would you be open to returning?" The offer caught me off guard, not because I hadn't expected it eventually, but because it came so soon. I took a long breath. "Patricia, I respect you truly. But I've already committed to something else. Summit Edge isn't just a company, it's the culmination of everything. Beacon and Brand forgot." "Silence, I understand," she said. "But for what it's worth, I'm sorry," and I believed her. When the call ended, I turned to see Renee, standing in the doorway holding coffee. "Well, they want me back." She blinked. "You're not going right." I smiled. "Not a chance." She handed me the coffee. "Good, because we just got final approval on the office lease. Harold's old building is ours starting Monday." And just like that, the future felt real. Beacon and Brand had tried to replace me with youth charm and connections. What they didn't understand was that relationships aren't built on sparkle. They're built on time, and no one, not even Alyssa, could fake that. The old Peterson building still smelled faintly of varnish and dust, but to me it was the scent of a second chance. When I first joined what would become Beacon and Brand, back when it was Peterson, creative, the agency had operated out of this very house. 6 people, 1 copier, a single window unit that struggled all summer. But we had heart. Now that heart had found a new rhythm. Summit Edge Marketing opened its doors on a sunny Monday morning, 6 months to the day, after I was shown out of Alyssa's office. A different kind of first day. No fancy launch party, no press release, just a quiet conviction and an inbox full of opportunity. We had clients, we had contracts, and more importantly, we had a team that believed Caleb walked through the front door, balancing 2 boxes of pastries. Renee was already at her desk setting up the final client dashboard. Madison had come by the night before to help clean leaving behind a small card on my new desk. "You built this because they forgot what you were worth. Now show them what happens when you remember." I kept it propped up against my monitor all day. By noon, I'd spoken to Gerald from Sterling Financial about their upcoming investor summit, confirmed a social media rollout with Nina from Greenway, and reviewed Valent's Q3 media placements with Bradley Monroe himself. We weren't starting from zero. We were picking up exactly where the others had dropped the baton. Our team was lean but lethal. Besides Caleb and Renee, we'd brought on 2 more former Beacon staffers, Janelle, our content strategist, and Marcus, a metrics analyst, who had once single-handedly rescued a campaign from a 30% drop in engagement. They weren't just talented, they were loyal. Loyal to an idea, to integrity, to doing the work the right way. "Feels like the dream version of what we always wanted," Caleb said, glancing around the modest but bright office. "It feels like the right version," I replied. That afternoon, a package arrived. No label, no sender. I opened it cautiously to find a box of champagne flutes, a bottle of mid-range bubbly, and a folded note. "Francis, congratulations on your new venture. May it be guided by everything the industry forgot and led by what it should always have valued. Harold Peterson." I hadn't seen Harold in years, but he still watched from a distance. He'd seen the news. He understood. And suddenly, it all felt real. By the end of our first week, we'd signed 2 additional clients. One a small non-profit referred by Nina, the other a food logistics company that had quietly followed me on LinkedIn since the Beacon and Brand fallout momentum wasn't just building, it was accelerating. On Wednesday afternoon, I found myself sitting in the new office conference room, running through a campaign brief with our team. The discussion flowed like music. No one had to posture or prove their worth. Everyone was heard, every idea sharpened another. It reminded me of what marketing used to feel like: collaborative, strategic, deeply human. Janelle leaned over and whispered, "It's strange, I forgot what it was like to actually enjoy this." I smiled. That's the point. The next day, we received a press inquiry. A business columnist from the Fresno Herald wanted to write about the client migration from Beacon and Brand and the launch of Summit Edge. I politely declined an interview instead, offering a short statement. At Summit Edge, we're focused on building meaningful partnerships rooted in trust and results. We don't believe in burning bridges. We believe in building better ones. It was picked up anyway. The headline read, "Outpaced or outclassed, Summit Edge quietly redefines marketing after Beacon exodus." Alyssa didn't respond publicly, but the article sparked hundreds of comments from local professionals. Half were congratulatory, auntie. The other half were questioning what had really gone wrong at Beacon and Brand. That Friday evening, we held a soft launch celebration. No press, no grandstanding, just team family, a few close clients, and one simple speech. I stood beside the modest Summit Edge sign, wine in hand. 6 months ago I began. I was told that what I offered, the relationships, the trust, the history, was no longer relevant, that there was a better way. A few heads nodded in understanding. Some smiled knowingly. But marketing isn't about who has the flashiest pitch deck or the trendiest jargon. It's about people, and people remember who showed up when it wasn't easy. I looked toward Madison, standing in the back, beaming. They tried to replace something they didn't understand, and that's not on us. What is on us is this: to never forget why we started, to never abandon substance for style, to never lose our edge. I raised my glass. To Summit Edge, may it always stand for what matters most. The room clinked glass, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was rebuilding. I felt like I was home. 6 months after our launch, the office walls at Summit Edge were no longer bare. Framed thank you notes from clients, campaign snapshots, our first signed contract marked with Caleb's coffee stain in the corner. We were no longer building a foundation, we were living in it. Business was thriving. Sterling Financial had expanded their contract to include full content lifecycle management. Greenway Foods referred us to 2 sister brands, and Valent had brought us into their international expansion talks. But it wasn't just about revenue, it was about relationships. Each client call felt like a conversation, not a transaction. Every new hire came through someone who had worked with us before. We didn't have to convince anyone who we were. Our work spoke, and it spoke clearly. On a crisp October morning, Madison dropped by the office with coffee and a print copy of the Fresno Herald. She dropped it on my desk with a smirk. "Page 2, she said. I opened it. Beacon and Brand names interim CEO. After leadership shakeup, following the departure of several high-profile clients and internal staff exits, Beacon and Brand has announced that CEO Alyssa Vance will be stepping down immediately. Sources cite strategic disagreements and reputation challenges as key factors." The article was clinical, professional, but I could read between the lines. Madison sipped her latte. "You don't seem surprised I'm not," I said quietly. "You can't build a house on sand and expect it to weather a storm." Later that afternoon, our receptionist buzzed me. "Francis, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says she used to work with you." I walked to the lobby, unsure what or who to expect. There, sitting nervously in a tan blazer that no longer looked as sharp as it once had, was Mackenzie Rhodes. I hadn't seen her since the day I was fired. "Francis," she stood awkwardly, brushing a hand through her hair. "Do you have a moment?" I studied her. The gloss was gone, so was the overconfidence. In its place stood someone unsure, exposed. "I have 10 minutes, I said. "Come in." We sat in my office. I closed the door. I just wanted to say thank you, she began. For what? For not fighting dirty. For not going after me publicly. For letting it play out. I didn't let anything play out, I replied. I just chose to build. Instead of burn. She nodded. It's been a hard 6 months after you left. Everything changed. The clients left. The board turned cold. Alyssa kept pushing me into meetings I wasn't ready for. Eventually, they let me go too. I sat quietly. I've realized something, she continued. It's not enough to be visible or trendy or have the right connections. You have to know how to hold people, to earn trust, and I never learned that. Not really. There was a long pause. I'm not asking for a job, she said quickly, but if there's ever room for me to learn, to really learn, I'd be grateful. I studied her. She wasn't the same woman who had smirked across the glass desk that day. She looked younger now, oddly, stripped of pretense, a blank slate. You can join us next week's strategy session, I said finally. No promises. But it's the start. Tears welled in her eyes. Thank you. After she left, I stared out the office window. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting golden lines across the floors. In the reflection of the glass, I saw myself, not the woman who had once packed up her career in a cardboard box, but the one who had rebuilt it with steel and grace. At our all-hands meeting that Friday, I stood before the growing team. We didn't get here by accident, I began, and we didn't get here because we followed trends. We got here because we remembered something. The world tries very hard to forget that people matter. They nodded, some smiling, others already jotting down ideas for our next pitch. Beacon and Brand thought they were building something new. But in doing so, they abandoned what worked, what lasted. They forgot that in business, as in life, the fastest way to lose everything is to believe people are replaceable. I let the words hang. We're not going to be the biggest or the flashiest, but we will be the most trusted. And in this industry, trust is currency. That night, as the team celebrated 6 months of success, I walked through the office one last time before locking up. The lights dimmed behind me, the city hummed outside, and in my heart I carried one truth. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't shouting your worth. It's letting your work whisper it into the right ears until the world can't ignore it anymore. True value isn't determined by titles or trends, but by trust, consistency, and integrity. Frances Hale's journey reminds us that when we stay rooted in what matters, relationships, honesty, and quiet excellence, no amount of corporate politics can erase our worth. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from fighting back, but from building forward, and sometimes the people who try to replace you end up teaching the world why you were irreplaceable to begin with. In a world chasing fast wins, lasting respect is earned slowly, and it never goes out of style. Let your work speak, let your character echo louder.